Good afternoon. Welcome back to Eating the Elephant on our sort of rescheduled Monday episode. I had promised that we would be on the air last night, and we were traveling to come visit with an insurance company, and we had a little disagreement with the hotel Wi-Fi last night, and we were finally able to get it repaired today. Frankly, it's just because I guess I'm a little bit more of a Luddite than I really wanted to believe, but we got things repaired, and we're back on the air, and we'll be back, of course, with our normal schedule beginning again on Wednesday. So let's kind of get back and unpack a few things that I was going to mention yesterday. For those of you new to this series, this is called Eating the Elephant because the recovery process from Hurricane Michael, we're eating an elephant, and we have to eat that elephant one bite at a time. And that's what we're trying to do, is break this thing down into bite-sized pieces for you. Today, we're about 29, 30 episodes in, something like that, on this series. And I kind of want to go back to basics a little bit, and I think it's important to go back and reiterate some things that we'd said maybe early on in the process, maybe a month or 6 weeks after the storm. And the first thing I want to say is that I would like to go back to the idea that I'd ask people to reward good behavior and to call out bad behavior. And I mean that with insurance companies, with insurance agents, with contractors, public adjusters, any provider that is providing you a service in the wake of Hurricane Michael. I would encourage you to name names. Let's call people out for their good and for their bad behavior. If you've had a good experience, let's reward that person with a shout out, maybe on Google or Facebook, other social media, so other people will know that's a reliable place to go. We've gotten very confused. We've got an awful lot of out-of-town players. We have an awful lot of folks that even are longtime folks from home that maybe have people working for them that are unfamiliar, that may not perform well. And we've had a lot of people that we don't know that have performed very well. So again, whoever you've got providing you a service, please, 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 when you get on Facebook, Google, Yelp, whatever, name names and let's call out the good behavior and the bad behavior as well. In addition, the other thing that'll do is if you're calling out bad behavior, that will give someone an opportunity maybe to correct that behavior. And maybe it's someone that's done a very good job, but they have an employee that's maybe or a subcontractor that's not performing the way they should, and that'll give the boss a chance to get on that problem and to solve it for you. With regard to contractors, I'd like to reiterate something that we've mentioned, but I don't think we've paid much attention to, and that's I think fewer people now are having frustration with their insurance company, although some sure still are. I think we're moving problems more toward mortgage companies and contractors. Obviously, contractors are the toughest part right now because there's a relatively few contractors out there, and there's just so much damage and so much to get to. So I know that people are very frustrated. We're hearing an awful lot of folks that are having some difficulty getting somebody to show up to keep an appointment. Once they have an appointment, maybe to get that estimate from them. Let's try to be realistic with our expectations, everybody. Contractors are all overworked, and not to say that they shouldn't keep appointments and do the things that they should, but what I'm saying is this needs to be a collaborative process, and let's try to work together. If you get on Facebook and you post a need that I'm in search of, say, 2 general contractors to give me estimates and I need them by tomorrow afternoon, well, frankly, you're going to be very disappointed, I think, in the results. I think what you need to do is you need to try to appreciate where everyone else is coming from right now. Yes, are you going to hire a contractor? Are you going to give them perhaps some money? Are you going to let them maybe make a good profit on your project? Certainly you are. But you have to understand that there's a limited number of these people and that they have to put their efforts where they think it's going to be the most useful and the most profitable, frankly. So if you have a smaller job, I think I mentioned this in my last episode, say $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, calling a general contractor and trying to get 2 or 3 bids just isn't realistic. That's for the best results, I think what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to go hire the tradesmen that you think you need and piece it out as best you can. Be persistent with these contractors, vet them very well, but take your time and do things on your schedule as best you can. And if you have to wait a little bit longer for a good result, do that. We talked very recently about the management triangle, good, fast, and cheap, and how normally you can have 2 of those things. Now you can only have 1. So if you want good work, you're not going to get it fast and you're not going to get it cheaply. So what I would say is let's take the fast off the table unless you're really in distress and have water pouring through your ceiling still. and let's work on the good and the cheap. I would encourage you to work on the good as best you can, and the cheap is a little bit less important because the bill ultimately, hopefully, will go to an insurance company. I don't think we need to completely disregard the cost. I don't think we need to let people rip us off or our insurance companies off, but let's consider the number one factor, and that is having a good quality product and good repair work done on your home. So let's move along to people that don't perform well for you. I'd like to reiterate this as well. If people don't perform well for you now, when you need them most, it's time to look at firing them. It is pretty easy to fire your insurance company, although you don't want to do that immediately for reasons we've covered. It's equally easy to fire your agent. You can, with an insurance company, quit paying the bill and move to another insurer. If you want to fire your agent, we've talked about either going to a new insurer or signing an agent of record letter and turning that policy over to a different agent that you think will perform better. Public adjusters, I think, need that same scrutiny now as well. And we're having some difficulty. It's been my understanding for a long time that if you sign an assignment of benefits or a contract with a public adjuster, that once you're past the period of rescission, you're locked in. We've heard back from some folks now that may not be the case, and we're going to do some more research on that. But if for folks that we heard of one public adjuster in particular who is evidently not very reputable in his community. I've heard that from another public adjuster that I think is better respected, and he evidently came in, signed up a bunch of folks, and pretty much left town, and has left people in some distress. And I don't think, obviously, that is not a common element among the public adjuster community. Most of them are still here on the ground and trying to do their jobs. But if you have a situation like that where you do not feel like you're getting the kind of attention you need, the two places that we've been told that you can get some attention and get some help, one is the state attorney's office, and we've not invoked that yet. I've not talked with anyone at the state attorney's office, but we are going to make some phone calls and see if that's see how much of a viable option that is for folks. And of course, the other place you can call is the Department of Financial Services, and we've mentioned them a number of times. And you have to remember the Department of Financial Services is who licenses public adjusters, and they have the power of enforcement, and they have the power to pull that license from that public adjuster and affect their income. So they're certainly going to respond to the Department of Insurance if they get some attention from them. So we're going to find out some more about that for you. I don't know that we'll have that information by Wednesday, but hopefully by next Sunday we'll have some better direction for you for how you can deal with assignment of benefits contracts and public adjusters that are not performing up to par. One question that came up this week that I think is pretty important that I want to hit really, really quick is the subject of appraisal. A lot of people have talked about invoking appraisal, and it's a process that's provided for in your insurance company where at the end of the day you and your insurance company are disagreeing on things, not on whether there's coverage, but on the amount of coverage there should be for your damage. And you can opt for an appraisal, which basically means you get somebody, your insurance company gets somebody, and then they come up with a third-party referee. And at the end of that process, there's going to be a number that comes out of that process, and you're stuck with that number. The appraisal process generally is going to be binding on both you and your insurance company, and I have to tell you, I think it's a high-risk move for you right now. I think there are much, much better options for you to get the results you want, and I don't think, as long as you're being reasonable, I don't really think that you should be in a position to have to try to compromise right now. You need to press for the amount of money that you need to get back to where you were before the storm. And that does not mean settling for something less than that. If you're being unreasonable and you're trying to get a new house that maybe is undamaged or something like that, or is relatively modestly damaged, that's one thing. But I don't see people doing that. What I do see is an awful lot of folks out there that are a little concerned that they're going to run short. And so I would say use extreme caution before you look to the appraisal process. It can be very effective when it's warranted, but like I said, that's one of those processes that's kind of an end game. And I think once you get to the appraisal and you go through that process, you're pretty well stuck with the results. So get some really good advice, hopefully from your agent, your public adjuster, your attorney, whoever you're working with, before you invoke that appraisal process. And I want to mention one thing before we go too. I've said this before. Once this is all done, once you are complete with your process, you need to go back and you need to count the dollars. Money in needs to equal money out. And and I've said early on that you need to either use a single credit card for most of your expenses. I've suggested opening separate bank accounts for construction, things such as that. And you need to have some way that you're comfortable with that you can track all of the money that comes in for your claim and all of the money that you spend getting your home repaired and your contents done, your additional living expenses, all of those items. You need to be sure that after this process is completely done, you can come back and you can match up those dollars, and that the dollars you got that are received are equal to or greater than what you've spent. Deductibles aside and things such as that, but you need to go back. Everybody is still in a distressed state. Everybody's still confused. We're all still running on fumes in some cases. So when this is all over with and you feel like you're completely done, I'm going to come back to this again. I want you to go back to your process. I want you to count all the dollars in and dollars out and make sure you have enough. And if not, you need to go back to your insurance company or to your agent, and you need to make sure your claim is reopened and you can match up those dollars. You're the person, more than anyone else, that needs to be satisfied that this claim is done properly. I'm going to leave you with what we always do, the four-step process that I want everyone to try to stay with, and that is to educate, advocate, escalate, and mediate where possible. The final comment I'm going to make is I think what we're going to try to do is on Wednesday we're going to announce our name for our elephant from Pat Futrell, who is a wonderful human being. I've gotten a little partisan on what I think the names ought to be, and no, Pat Saviston, I absolutely refuse to make any Alabama sort of name for this elephant. The Seminole in me just won't let it happen. But I'm going to let my daughter, who's probably the smartest person I know, pick the name, because she's very bright, and I trust a lot of the things that she has to say and do. But what we're going to do, again, is we're going to leave today. Hopefully we're going to find out some more information at this meeting about the results of the storm and how insurance companies are performing, and we'll bring you that information on Wednesday. I hope you have a good week. I'm sorry we were a day late, and we'll see you on Wednesday evening.